Well, it's been quite some time since I made a Balisong review, and this one is a little bit different. And as you can tell, this review is a little bit different compared to my previous ones, where I would be behind the camera the entire time. I'm trying something a little bit different, just for fun. So you're going to have to put up with my speech impediments at times and my dyslexia. But most of the video is going to be me behind the camera. For today's review, we have actually a clone of the Mantis Vuja De knife. Now, Mantis is, I guess, known somewhat for unconventional designs and kind of weird looking knives in general, like this coin knife here, or this kind of hook, strange ring neck knife. They also have something that I guess they call a utility knife. So it's safe to say that Mantis has somewhat of a reputation of unconventional designs and kind of strange looking knives overall. And truth be told, I would have loved to have gotten a hold of the real Mantis Vuja De knife to compare these two with, but the thing is, I was not really willing to pay nearly 3 times the price for the real Vuja De knife when I question its practicality and its ability to flip at all. Anyway, as I said, this clone comes from Amazon, and it's titled as Nedfoss Pocket Knife Outdoor Folding Pocket Knife with 7 CR17 MOV steel blade, G10 handle with button lock and pocket clip for $22.99 with Prime shipping. Not to be confused with another listing on Amazon titled EDC Fans, EDC Folding Pocket Knife, G10 handle, edge blade, button lock, sheath, pocket clip for everyday carry, cool knives for men, outdoor survival, hunting, camping, also for $22.99 with Prime shipping. The only difference between the two products is that the blade on this EDC Fans one is made with a different steel, and the blade has a strange etching on it. So typically Balisongs with a live sharp blade are not to be sold on sites like Amazon or even I think eBay. However, I think that these sellers got away with it due to some sort of loophole by classifying these knives as automatics or just pocket knives instead of Balisongs. I could be wrong about that, it's more of a hunch than anything. So this knife here, just by looking at it and comparing it to some of the other Balisongs I have on this table here, you can easily tell it's quite small and compact. The entire knife when open is about 6 inches, with the blade itself only having a cutting edge of about 2 inches. The handles are sandwich construction using black G10 scales. You have this finger loop on the bottom here, and the blade itself has a pretty nasty looking hawkbill style to it. Obviously this knife is a karambit, which is not very common in the Balisong world. All of the screws are Torx, so you'll need a T6 for the screws on the handles, while the pivot and the tang screws utilize a size T9. Why is this important that I'm bringing this up? Well, because with any of these Balisongs that utilize screws instead of rivets, especially the cheaper ones, the screws tend to loosen up very quickly, and what happens is that while you're mid-flip, the knife suddenly goes flying out of your hand. Yes, this has happened to me, and yes, it is very scary. So please make sure to use a blue thread locker on all the screws, and also apply a good quality lubricant on the pivot screws just to make the action just that much more smooth. The latch on this knife is spring loaded, but not in the traditional sense for a Balisong. In order to open the knife, there's a button lock at the bottom of the handle. Now when you press it and pull the handles apart, or I guess flick the knife open, whatever, you'll see that this latch springs away from the knife instead of stopping at the bottom like every other spring-loaded Balisong on the market. Not only that, but the latch is on the safe handle and not the bite handle. And that's totally understandable due to the design of this knife having the finger ring here. The problem with this whole design, however, is that it makes flipping this knife like a traditional Balisong not exactly impossible, but incredibly annoying and difficult. The latch gets in the way the entire time you're flipping, but we'll talk about performing tricks on this knife a little bit later in this video. The knife, when it's open, rests very comfortably in the hand. Honestly, of all the 7 karambit knives I've owned in the past, this one is surprisingly the most comfortable. The pocket clip is reversible or removable if you so choose to. The knife also comes with this belt holster. Nothing really to say about it other than it's cheap, it's crap, and I'll never use it. As far as the build quality goes, again, I'm very surprised by it. It's really not that bad at all. Everything seems to be very well constructed. The G10 scales are made very well. No sharp, uncomfortable edges, and it's not ugly at all visually. The texturing on the scales, again, is totally fine. It's not rough on the hands whatsoever. The scales aren't 100% flush with the metal liner, but it's very close. You'd have to almost go out of your way to see it. My only real complaint that I have in regards to the handle construction is that when you have the knife closed with the latch sticking out, the metal portion of the handle clacks against the ring here, instead of the ring resting in between the metal on the handle. It's not really a big deal or anything. It's a very nitpicky thing, but I wonder if the real Mantis one is like this. I have no concern of this knife breaking on me anytime soon. Granted, I have not dropped this knife on hard concrete surfaces multiple times, but even then, I'm not really super worried about it. A lot of these cheaper knives from China, you can hold one of the handles in your hand and pinch the 2 pieces of the handle together, and you can physically see the 2 pieces flex like hell. This one doesn't flex whatsoever. I mean, this thing is a solid, well-made piece, especially for the price. 15 years ago, I would struggle to find a Balisong this well made for $20-something. It's kind of amazing how things have changed over the years. Alright, so let's talk about flipping the Mantis Vuja De knife, and before I even talk about that, I have to point out that I am not, and never have ever once said that I am an expert at flipping Balisongs. The reason why I'm saying that is because in my previous reviews there's been comments where people tell me that I'm sloppy or that I'm not good at flipping Balisongs. Okay. Mind you, these same people don't have any videos on their channel to even prove that they can even flip a Balisong in the first place either. Now, besides that, this is just a hobby of mine. It's something I've picked up for the past 15 plus years. Again, I'm not an expert. I'm a casual flipper who loves Balisongs. So let's just rule that out once and for all. Anyway, you can perform tricks with this knife. It is entirely possible. However, don't expect to do anything outside of basic moves. I'm talking double or single rollouts, half twirls, ice pick spins, latch drops, very basic stuff. The most advanced thing I can do on this knife is a very basic rollover or a Y2K, and even then when I perform it, it just looks like shit. Can someone perform more intermediate or advanced moves on this knife? I'm entirely sure it's possible. Would you want to? Probably not. There's a few reasons as to why this knife is not a good flipper. Well, for one, the balance of this knife is super wonky. Obviously, this is due to the unconventional design of the knife being a small karambit with a 2-inch blade. The handles and tiny curved blade make flipping very awkward and difficult to say the least. However, the biggest reason why this knife is a terrible flipper is due to the whole latch design. Again, when you press the button to release the knife from the locked position, the latch sticks out from the handle, basically in a 90-degree angle. And what happens is that not only does this latch get in the way of literally every single possible move you can perform on this knife, the knife also locks in the open position with very little force. So performing any combo or move that requires the 2 handles to hit against each other in the open position is more than likely going to lock this knife. Can you remove the latch? Of course you can. Would it make the knife a better flipper? In theory, I guess it would. because it wouldn't get in the way at all. But it doesn't make this knife itself a better flipper due to the balance and unconventional design. There are knives that have curved handles that flip totally fine for the most part. This one, I think, because of the blade being so sharply curved and, well, the blade itself being so small, is a prime reason why the balance is thrown off as bad as I think it is. So there is one final thing I want to address before we get to my final thoughts, and I find this to be incredibly, incredibly important. Recently I saw a video on YouTube where this guy with hundreds of thousands of subscribers, I will not say his name, that's not important here. He states in that video that the Mantis Vuja De, which is, again, this is a clone of, would be a good self-defense knife to have. No, it wouldn't. You know what? I would rather you have a box cutter like this that flips out very easily. I would rather you have this as a self-defense weapon than the Vuja De. And for good reason. This knife has a complicated opening method. Yeah, you could sit there and say, well, it's not that much different than a regular balisong. I beg to differ. If you were to pull this out of your pocket, in the event that you have an attacker somewhere nearby, right? He's ready to get at you. And you have to pull this out as quickly as possible and get into some sort of stance, right? You would have to be so ridiculously in tune with this knife to be able to pull this out, hit the button latch, swing this open or manually open it into the locking position and get a comfortable grip all before the attacker gets to you and potentially kills you. That is a ridiculously hard operation to do, especially when you're under a stressful situation where someone is coming at you with a weapon. Yes, you can sit there and say all day long, well, Foxy, you know, I pulled this knife out and I could very quickly open it. Okay, fine. But there's a complete different situation where you're at home in the leisure of your own house, where you're just flipping this stupid thing all day long, versus something like an attack where he's coming at you. That's a completely different situation where you're going to be under a lot of stress and you're going to have adrenaline pumping through your body. Chances are, when you pull this knife out of your pocket and you try to do that same thing that you're doing all throughout your house, you're probably going to fuck up somewhere. It is what it is, unfortunately. And yes, okay, fine. This knife would be a good EDC tool to have. I've used it for about a month now, just casually in my pocket. Used it at work, used it at home, wherever. And I had no problems with it, but I never intended this to be used as a self-defense weapon because it's not practical for that. Allow me to show you a comparison of a couple knives and kind of reenact a scenario where I attempt to draw the knives as fast as I can. Okay, so first we have this. I've owned this knife for well over 10 years. It's basically a knockoff knife that Cold Steel makes, but the design of this knife allows me to very quickly draw this from my pocket without even touching the thumb stud. This is just a basic run-of-the-mill knife with a liner lock and a spring assist, but a lot of manual knives you can very easily flick open as well. And here's a Bear & Sons balisong that I previously reviewed, just for shits if you were to carry a balisong as a self-defense weapon, which mind you is illegal in a lot of states, so check your local laws for that one. And finally, the Mantis clone. Now, the only way I can draw this knife and do it even remotely fast is with a modified latch drop style, meaning that when I draw this knife, I first grab it by the ring with my index finger. As I am pulling this knife out, I have to pinch my middle finger on the button release and my thumb on the opposite side of the handle. When the latch releases, I flick down and up, and 7 times out of 10, it locks itself in the open position where I can very quickly change into a reverse styled grip. It's the fastest way I've been able to draw this knife. Is it fast enough when compared to the other 3 knives I demonstrated? Well, you be the judge. Me personally, I never want to be put in a situation where I have to use this knife in self-defense, unless for whatever reason I already have this knife out and in the open position, ready to go. But the likelihood of that being a thing is damn near impossible. Alright, so what are my final thoughts on this Mantis clone from Amazon? Despite it being a horrible, impractical flipper and a god-awful choice for self-defense, I still really like it. If nothing else, it makes for a great conversation or display piece. It's a neat little collectible and very unique in terms of looks and functionality. I would still love to compare this with the real Mantis knife, and I'm very curious to see what the differences are, if in fact there are any differences at all. I can't exactly say I recommend this knife in the traditional sense, but if you like novelty knives, karambits, balisongs, or really anything strange and unusual, I say what the hell, go for it. If you are expecting a daily flipper out of it or to use this knife as a everyday carry option, I would go elsewhere. But with that said, everyone, thank you all so much for watching. I do plan to make more balisong and maybe even regular knife reviews in the future. It all just depends on how stupid busy my personal life is, and of course the demand for a video like that from you guys. As always, everyone, thank you so much, take care, and I'll see you next time.